Good morning, and welcome to the Cyber Smart Morning News Update. With the always evolving world of cyber threats and defense, you need a source you can trust. FBI retired Special Agent Darren Mott guides you through today's intricate cyber landscape and brings you the latest headlines and insights and what it means to you. Let's dive into today's cyber news.
Good morning, friends. It is Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. This is the Cyber Smart Morning News Update. You're probably wondering, why on a Tuesday? Well, sadly, I missed Monday because we had a wedding on Sunday night and a bunch of other stuff, and so it just kind of got away from me. And if you haven't figured this out already, I do these the day before I actually release it. It's just easier that way than getting up at 3 in the morning and doing it, which would be really fantastically fun. So here we are on Tuesday. So, I'm still going to give you 3 a week, and let's get right into it because I got a bunch of stories because obviously over the weekend, the cybercrime issue did not resolve itself, much to our chagrin. So first one is from cybernews.com. Paulina Cointy reporting malware that steals bank data is back despite arrests. And that is what kind of drew me to this article because, law enforcement, as it should, is very proud when it actually arrests people. And absolutely. And we want to see those things happen, right? The sad thing is you have to remember that it is a quick and not long-lasting fix. But anyway, let's read this a little bit. Despite a recent crackdown, the Grandorari, I can't even pronounce it. So if you want to see what it is, it starts with a G. It's a banking Trojan, has been actively targeting 1,500 banks globally, an investigation shows. IBM X-Force has identified several large-scale phishing campaigns that have been distributing the Grandoriro banking Trojan since March 2024, which is not a long time, but clearly they've gotten some success. This banking Trojan has been known to target Latin America, Spain, and Portugal. However, and this is not surprising, the new wave of attacks has expanded its scope to include regions in Central and South America, Africa, Europe, and the Pacific, targeting 1,500 banks globally. Also, the researchers see significant technical improvements to the malware itself. The malware is distributed by an email with a malicious link impersonating government entities or other legitimate organizations such as banks and financial institutions. And not a big surprise, obviously, phishing works, right? Spear phishing and email stuff is the easiest way in. It still works. That's why these entities still do it. So the point being here, if you're a financial institution, be aware this is coming and it's targeting users, right? So it does say that at the end of January, Brazilian authorities shut down a criminal gang operating malware responsible for the theft of $3.9 million in 2019. In 2021, Spain arrested 16 subjects laundering funds stolen through these malware campaigns. But according to Interpol, the malware has been considered a major cybersecurity threat across Spanish-speaking countries since 2017. That's the extent of the article, honestly. But the point being here, it's hitting Canada, it's hitting the U.S., it's hitting Mexico. So it's moving its way across the world, really. So banking institutions need to be aware. And what would be nice, right? And maybe I have to look deeper. Maybe there is a CISA or an FBI report on this about what it looks like, what the email looks like, what it drops onto the system. But on all these things announcing it would really be nice to know, how do they work? That's the thing I'm always yelling for. Darkreading.com. Jai Vijayan reporting. Google pitches Workspace as Microsoft email alternative, citing a CSRB report. CSRB is the Cyber Safety Review Board, and they've done all of 3 reports since being in existence, but I digress. And subheadline, the new secure alternative program from Google aims to entice customers away from Exchange Online and break Microsoft's dominance in the enterprise. Google is using a recent report by the U.S. Cyber Safety Review Board that was critical of Microsoft security practices to make a case for its own Google Workspace suite of cloud-hosted email and office productivity apps. In 2 separate blogs, and without once referring to Microsoft by name, company executives cited the CSRB report as reasons why enterprise organizations should consider moving away from Microsoft Exchange Online hosted email to Google Workspace. Now, there's more to this article if you really want to read it, but the point being, right, not surprising that in a capitalist world that one company is going to jump on top of the bad things that happen to another to try to improve their market space. But I would warn Google, be careful what you wish for, because if more enterprises decide to go the Google route, that is going to make Google a more targeted entity. And Microsoft should be a learning situation where they didn't do the simple things, and they have this issue. Google, I assume, would want to do the simple things, but let's be honest. I mean, they have a lot of different business models, and there's certainly no guarantee that they're all doing the same thing right. So, I mean, if you're an enterprise and you want to move to Google, feel free to do so. I don't think your risk is going to be any less. if anything, it's going to be more targeted now that bad guys are going to say, hey, let's just go target Google. So interesting to watch. We'll see how that what happens as that goes forward. Cyberscoop.com, Christian Vasquez reporting, EPA will set up inspections of water sector cybersecurity. A new enforcement alert said that the majority of inspected water systems do not comply with federal requirements. Not surprising. The EPA issued an alert Monday warning the nation's water utilities that as cybersecurity threats continue to rise, the agency will also increase its security-focused inspections and enforcement activities. The EPA said in a statement that the agency has found that more than 70% of inspected water systems do not fully comply with certain security requirements in the Safe Drinking Water Act. Some of the water systems are missing basic cybersecurity practices, the agency said, such as not relying on default passwords and not using multi-factor authentication. That's bad right there. That's the first thing you should do. And if you're not doing that, that is a problem. So not a bad idea that the EPA is doing this and having more of a inspection-oriented focus on this to make them do the right thing. Will it work? Hard to say. Depends on what the enforcement entity will be if they don't do it. But I mean, someone's got to do it, right? And you will probably see this happen across more critical national infrastructure entities, not just water, but electrical and gas and oil and chemical and all that kind of stuff, because they're all in the same boat, right? It's not just water that has this issue. The only reason I even picked this article simply was to make that point. That this is not the water sector is not the only critical national infrastructure sector with cybersecurity issues. But at least the EPA is stepping up. Now, will they do it to others? I assume they will if they have success here in making the water treatment plants more compliant. But again, the problem's going to be who's paying for it. Do they have the personnel to do it? And I mean, if they don't, what is the EPA going to do? Shut it down? Stop the water from flowing in these facilities? I don't think so. So it'll be interesting to watch, see how that goes. But I understand them wanting to do it. All right. Bleeping Computer, Sergey Gatlin reporting. Microsoft to start enforcing Azure multi-factor authentication in July. The only reason I even picked this, I'm not going to read the article, you can go read it if you want, is why now? Why wait so long? You know why? Because I got in trouble. Starting in July, I guess I will read some of it. Starting in July, why not start today? But whatever. Starting in July, Microsoft will begin gradually enforcing multi-factor authentication for all users signing into Azure to administer resources. After first completing the rollout for the Azure portal, the MFA enforcement will see a similar rollout for CLL, PowerShell, and Terraform. My only point here is should have been doing it all along. This is ridiculous that they have not been doing it. Microsoft is the leading software company in the world. Do the basic things. I mean, if you want to turn it off, then they're stupid and want to turn it off. Fine. But they should have had this going, honestly, ever since. But according to a Microsoft study focused on analyzing the security performance of MFA methods across a large data set of Azure Active Directory users exhibiting malicious, suspicious activity, MFA offers a big boost of protection for user accounts against cyber attacks, with over 99.99% of all MFA-enabled accounts resisting hacking attempts. Duh. It's not a perfect, right? It's never going to be perfect, but at least will put you in the end of the pool where your likelihood of being successfully breached is limited. So again, why are we waiting until July? Just do it now. But I mean, maybe it's a technical issue. I don't know. But anyway, okay. If you're an Azure user, know that's coming. BleepingComputer.com, Lawrence Abrams, ransomware gang targets Windows admins via PuTTY WinSCP malvertising. A ransomware operation targets Windows system administrators by taking out Google ads to promote fake download sites for PuTTY and WinSCP. WinSCP and PuTTY are popular Windows utilities, with WinSCP being an SFTP client, an FTP client, and PuTTY an SSH client. So WinSCP is basically a file transfer protocol, and PuTTY is a login administrator type of entity. System administrators commonly have higher privileges on a Windows network, making them valuable targets for threat actors who want to quickly spread through a network, steal data, and gain access to a network's domain controller to deploy ransomware. A recent report by Rapid7 says that a search engine campaign displayed ads for fake PuTTY and WinSCP sites when searching for download WinSCP or download PuTTY. It is unclear if the campaign took place on Google or Bing, doesn't matter. If it's taking place on one, it's ultimately going to take place on the other. So if you're a Windows administrator, be very careful where you're downloading these tools if it's something that you need. So this is a very big awareness piece here. There's a lot more to the article because it shows how the malware gets executed and stuff like that. So that's always good with Bleeping Computers. They always have good information on how it works, right? So if you're an administrator, what to look for, what files are downloaded when that happens, that's all in the article. And as always, the articles in this podcast are listed in the show notes for you to refer back to. Because if I was to read them all, we would be here forever. And who wants that? We're here for a good time, not a long time. HackerNews.com. Iranian MOIS-linked hackers behind destructive attacks on Albania and Israel. An Iranian threat actor affiliated with the Ministry of Intelligence and Security, or MOIS, has been attributed as behind destructive wiping attacks targeting Albania and Israel under the personas Homeland Justice and Karma, respectively. Cybersecurity firm Checkpoint is tracking the activity under the moniker Void Manticore, which is also known as Storm 0842 by Microsoft. There are clear overlaps between the targets of Void Manticore and Scarred Manticore, with indications of systemic handoff targets between those two groups when deciding to conduct destructive activities against existing victims of Scarred Manticore, which is another intrusion group, the company said in a report published on Monday. The threat actor is known for its disruptive cyber attacks against Albania since July 2022 under the name Homeland Justice that involves the use of bespoke wiper malware called CyBUr and No Justice, also known as Low Eraser. The point being, just because they're coming for Albania and Israel doesn't mean we shouldn't pay attention to this. So attack chains orchestrated by the group are straightforward and simple, typically leveraging publicly available tools and making use of RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol, Server Message Block, SMB, and FTP for lateral movements prior to malware deployment. How do they get on the system? I wonder if it even says here. Oh, yeah, here it is, next paragraph. Initial access, in some cases, is accomplished by the exploitation of known security flaws in internet-facing applications, according to an advisory released by CISA in September 2022. So this is a long-standing attack platform, obviously using vulnerabilities that if you patch the vulnerabilities, you won't have the problem. But again, I digress. But again, I understand companies have limited personnel. They aren't aware of all the different vulnerabilities and threats. And there's a little bit more to this article if you want to take a look at it. But again, be aware. And I point this out simply to say we talk a lot about Russia and China, or at least I do, being primary, counterintelligence, hacker agents, that kind of thing. Iran is nothing to be trifled with either. I mean, just because it's why they're have a thing about Albania, I don't really know. That's an interesting geopolitical question. But no, it's not surprising they are attacking Israel. If they're not, I guarantee you they're attacking the U.S. We just don't have a confirmed victim at this point. But at some point we will, and we can refer back and say, hey, I heard Darren say that on May 20th or 21st. Lastly, SEC rule for finance firms boost disclosure requirements. This is from CSOonline.com. Amendment to Regulation S-P requires brokers, dealers, investment companies, registered investment advisors, and transfer agents to disclose incidents to customers. So this is a good thing. The more data breach announcements that can be made, the better, especially if it says how it happened. But the SEC announced rule changes for some financial companies that will require more customer disclosures when security incidents impact their personal information, as well as mandate incident response programs. That's great. The new rule, however, is unlikely to change anything for enterprise financial companies, as they were either already required to make such disclosures or already had incident response programs in place. So I guess my excitement on this is now waning. Quote, over the last 24 years, the nature, scale, and impact of data breaches has transformed substantially, said SEC Chair Gary Gensler in a statement. Quote, these amendments will help protect the privacy of customers' financial data. The basic idea for covered firms, if you've got a breach, you got to notify. That's good for investors. I agree. That's good thing. The new rules and amendments only apply to broker-dealers, including funding portals, investment companies, whatever. So my point here being, there's new SEC rules that have to do with data breach announcements. So if you are in the financial sector, be aware of them. You don't want to get caught with your pants down and get in trouble for not reporting in a timely manner. I'm sure that will be expensive. And this is probably a meaningful step towards, more privacy rights for the consumer, kind of more like they have in Europe. We are more freewheeling than Europe, clearly, when it comes to privacy, but we'll see how it goes. That's going to do it for the news for this Tuesday, May 21st. As always, like I said, the articles are all listed in the show notes if you want to refer to them any deeper. If you have thoughts, questions, comments, feel free to email me, Darren@thecyberguy.com. You can read my Substack, find me on LinkedIn, do all those fancy things. And as always, I thank you for taking the time to listen. Hopefully you told a friend, and hopefully you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Otherwise, understand the threats targeting you. If you can understand, knowledge is power. If you can understand the threats targeting you, you can assess your risk, proceed wisely. Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to get out. So I'm just going to get out by hitting this button.
Cyber Smart Morning News is written and produced by Cyber Guy Productions. Feel free to email thoughts, comments, or suggestions to Darren@thecyberguy.com. or follow Darren on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/DarrettMott. Thanks for listening.